If you're using a guitar rig based around digital modeling, you're probably aware of Redsound and their range of powered FRFR speakers. I've been using the MF10s in my personal rig for a couple of years now, whether it's having a grab and go solution to make myself loud on stage live or to practice and rehearse with. For guitar players who still want to run a traditional guitar cab with their modeling rig, they've got two single rack space power amps, the RPA 300X, which is stereo capable, and the RPA 600, which is on behind me running into my Marshall 4x12. This one has four Celestion G12T75s in it, which aren't my favorite speakers of all time, but this is the only cab that I've got here at home to demo this with. I want to show you how you could create a hybrid rig that lets you run your modeler direct to front of house with a cabinet simulation on and separately to a live cab on stage. This is something that I've seen a lot of people gravitating towards. Basically, it's a best of both worlds approach where the DI signal from your modeler going to front of house isn't reliant on a random sound guy coming in, miking up your amp with some microphone that you have no control over that might get moved or kicked over during a gig. You have full control over what's going to front of house, but you still have the on-stage sound reinforcement and feel of a real guitar cabinet. Both of these rack power amps come in at under 4 kilos. Like everything Redsound I've tried, these feel super solid, and a shout out to Andrew at Independent Music here in Australia for letting me borrow these for a few weeks so I can make some guitar noises. Let's dive into it. I'm going to use a preset that I built around the Brit 800 2203 high as a starting point. I'm running output 1 direct to my audio interface. So this is the sort of thing that I would use to run direct. This could go straight to the mixing desk and the PA and come out of front of house here. I've paired it up with an IR that I made of this very cabinet behind me. I've got the bottom left speaker mic'd up with a Shure SM57. I actually used the IR utility in the Axe-FX 3 and the Redsound power amp to capture an IR of that exact setup and mic placement. I've got a little bit of gold plate reverb on there. I have the ability, if I want to add some stereo delay or stereo dual detune. This is the DI signal. With the detune on there, I've got some nice width happening. The stereo delay, of course, is super lush. That T75 sounds very different to my usual free IR that I use based around my cab with greenbacks, but it matches up well with this JCM 800 model in here. Okay, if I wanted to add the ability to run the cab as a backline cab, with the option to mic it up or not mic it up, I think a lot of people would prefer with this kind of hybrid modeler cab setup to take the DI from the modeler, in this case in stereo, and run that to front of house and then just use the cab on stage. Because of the way I'm doing this video, I've also mic'd the cab. So we just have to be careful with what we do with the signal chain. I could split from the output of the amp and send it to the cabinet. That way the cab would be totally dry. Front of house would be wet with a bit of reverb if I wanted the detune and delay on there. But I usually want to hear my delay out of my cab on my solos as well. So I think the easiest way to run this is to take this mono cab block and actually just place it at the end of the chain, but then convert it to a stereo cab. That's if you do want to run stereo live, and life is too short not to run stereo live. So basically, we're going to take the exact same IR in the left and right slots over here. The input mode is stereo. We just have to pan them out hard left and hard right. So I've still got the exact same tone happening here, DI. What I want to do now is split the signal before the cab. I'm actually going to split it before that stereo detune, so I can still have my delay and my reverb on my cab, but the detune and the cab are going to front of house. That's giving me my mic'd up cab sound and a bit of stereo width on there. Again, you can adjust this to taste. So we're going to take the output of the reverb block. We're going to drop it down here. I will right click and add output 2. All right, this brings the cabinet into the equation now. I have the output 2 knob on my Axe Effects turned up. I have the Redsound power amp at like 9, 10 o'clock. Not very high. It is pretty loud in the room. I've mic'd it with an SM57. I might let you hear it also with just my vocal room mic on here. This is just the sound of the cab. Then we're going to hear the live cab blended with the DI signal. Slamming in the room. Having a live cab in a room is something that I normally don't do in the studio. Most of my demo videos, I've got the cabinet in another room mic'd up, but you know, it's pretty exhilarating to do that. And if you're somebody who is used to playing with a real amplifier on stage and you want to make the transition to playing a modeler direct, having this hybrid approach where you've still got a live cab on stage is a great solution. I've seen a lot of bands and a lot of artists move to this kind of setup just because the cab on stage, even with a little bit of volume, provides that non-negotiable sound reinforcement. You're not super dependent on front of house getting your guitar sound to the right level. That is definitely something that I have struggled with at times over the years. The convenience of modeling is unparalleled, but having the ability to easily get a cabinet pumping on stage, especially if you're playing with another guitar player who's using cabs or real amps, or you're playing with a bass player and drummer who are still really loud. That's just going to be comfortable. It can help with the overall vibe, and as we all know, when it sounds good on stage, you are going to play better. So another couple of tricks you can do in here, these actually live in the amp block, would be going to the speaker tab and selecting a speaker impedance curve that's most suitable for your cabinet. So I've gone with the 4x12 Brit 800 because that is a JCM 800 cab from the 80s, but you know, you can actually use non-authentic combinations of speaker impedance in here. Let's try this 4x12 Recto straight instead. Now, of course, something like the stereo version you could use in a wet, dry, wet setup, or you could even use the mono version to take a lower wattage tube amp, like say my Soldano Astro that has a DI output with a power amp simulation on it through a real cab. Let's hear a quick comparison between the Astro's power amp and then the RPA 600. As always, if you'd like to learn more, I'll pop a link in the video description. Big shout out to Andrew at Independent again for letting me borrow these and make some guitar noises. Let me know how you're running your modeler live. Are you somebody who is strictly going DI to front of house and then using FRFRs, or are you someone who will always swear by having a guitar cabinet on stage? I'd be really curious to hear what everybody is using. If you want to support me directly, links to my Patreon and the music that I make with my band Ragdoll are in the video description. See you on the next one.